Coming up today, the floor leaders of South Korea's rival parties try to reach consensus over contentious anti-terror legislation, a North Korea human rights bill, and a new-look electoral map. Samsung and LG unveil their latest smartphones at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Both the Galaxy S7 and the G5 are already receiving plaudits from tech experts. Plus, scores of people are killed in Islamic State bomb attacks in Syria, a matter of hours after the US and Russia reached an agreement aimed at ending the bloodshed in the war-torn country. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 22nd of February. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We start this afternoon at South Korea's National Assembly, and the leaders of the main rival parties held yet another meeting this morning in a last-ditch effort to resolve pending issues ahead of Tuesday's extraordinary session. The floor leaders of the ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition Minju Party of Korea reportedly attempt to break the impasse on the North Korea Human Rights Act and the Anti-Terrorism Act. With the clock ticking to the general election in mid-April, discussions on redrawing the electoral map appear to have taken centre stage. The leaders also met with Assembly Speaker Jung Ui-hwa, who earlier hinted that he might use his authority to call for a full-floor parliamentary vote on the anti-terrorism bill. We will bring you all the details of the meeting in our afternoon newscast. Now, it has emerged that the United States and North Korea exchanged views last year over starting peace treaty talks, but failed to make much headway. A diplomatic source in Washington told Seoul-based Yonhap news agency on Sunday that the talks were first proposed by Pyongyang via North Korea's mission to the United Nations. Now, in response, the US said North Korea should denuclearize before it calls for peace talks to formally end the Korean War. The US State Department has acknowledged its exchange with Pyongyang, adding Washington's response was in line with its goals to denuclearize North Korea. In a conflicting report to that out of Yonhap, the Wall Street Journal reported Sunday, citing its own sources, that Washington had agreed to hold peace talks with the North without any preconditions. The South Korean government says denuclearizing North Korea is the utmost priority and that Seoul should be at the center of establishing a peace treaty. President Park Geun-hye has been chairing a meeting of her senior secretaries, the second of the year. She called on her top aides to work harder to ensure the nation's security and safety. Song Ji-sun has the details.
Seoul is taking stronger measures against Pyongyang than ever to make sure the North changes. Noting the rising terror threats from North Korea, President Park Geun-hye called on her senior secretaries to do their best for the nation's security and to guarantee the safety of the people. Regarding last month's exports, which dropped by the fastest pace in 6 years, Park said external economic conditions are worse than expected, citing the slowdown in China and in other emerging economies. Saying that the recent fluctuations in global financial markets, coupled with the North Korean factor, could weigh on the South Korean economy, she stressed that reform drives must be continued to revitalize the economy. Following up with last week's investment promotion meeting, Park reiterated that all but absolutely necessary regulations must be removed to avoid hampering new growth engines. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye will mark her 4th year in office on Thursday. To mark the occasion, we are going to broadcast a series of reports about her successes and failures over the last 12 months and look at what might be in store going forward. First up is the President's handling of the economy. For the details, we turn to our economics correspondent, Hwang Ji-ae.
Despite sluggish global demand throughout last year, Korea still managed to post the 3rd fastest growth rate among some major economies, thanks in part to the Park administration's aggressive stimulus measures. The country also posted a budget surplus for the first time in 4 years in 2015. And thanks to the country's sound fiscal health, Moody's upgraded Korea's credit rating by a notch late last year to its third highest grade, a record high for the nation.
Now, the real task facing President Park Geun-hye's economic team is pushing through structural reforms to tackle longer-term issues like the aging population to raise the country's growth potential.
In fact, Korea did make some progress in reforming the public sector last year by revising the public pension system for civil servants. Still, experts say there's a long way to go.
Public pension reform and measures to improve efficiency at public corporations were positive steps, but the government has faced criticism as the changes have not really boosted productivity.
And the task of reform is not the only issue the Park administration is facing.
The massive amount of household debt in Korea is a big burden. People are choosing to save money instead of spending.
Debt risks stemming from the corporate sector are also a sticking point. Experts say corporate restructuring should take place as the Park administration has planned. They say that while concerns about job losses and its effects on growth should be noted, further delay, as seen in previous administrations, could turn the problem into an even bigger crisis. 황지혜, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, Korea's outbound shipments exports continue to suffer from some really rather huge losses. According to the Korea Customs Service, Korean exports during the first 3 weeks of February totaled $22.16 billion. Sounds a lot, but that's down over 17% from the previous year. In January, the nation's exports dropped nearly 19% on year. The margin of decrease in January for Korean exports is large as well compared to neighboring nations. China's exports slid 11.2% during the cited period, while Japan's exports dropped 12.8%. Korea's plunging exports are attributed to a sharp decline in shipments to China, low global oil prices and slow global trade. And Korea's labour productivity in the manufacturing sector dropped in the first 3 quarters of 2015. According to Statistics Korea, the labour productivity index for the manufacturing industry stood at 96.7 in the January to September period last year, down 2.7% from the previous year. Labour productivity has been on the decline for 4 straight years since 2012, and the figure for 2015 is feared to have dropped to a 6-year low. Experts say the country's key industry is losing steam due to slowing exports. In response, the Seoul government has announced a set of plans to bolster exports and prop up the economy. Now, Korea's biggest tech firms, Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics, have unveiled their latest smartphone models ahead of the official opening of the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Our Kim Ji-yeon with the details.
Korea's leading smartphone maker Samsung Electronics and its local rival LG Electronics released their new flagship smartphones in Barcelona, Spain, which is hosting one of the biggest tech events, the Mobile World Congress, this week. Samsung's Galaxy S7 has a 5.1-inch screen with a curved glass back. The S7 Edge is curved at the left and right-hand edges, and the curved designs are what the company says makes them more comfortable to use with one hand.
Now, we usually use our phones with only one hand, but that can be challenging with a larger screen. So we rethought the design of the Edge to make it easier to use when you only have one thumb to spare. Just slide your thumb across the Edge, and the Edge panel glides onto the display. The wider panel allows for richer content, and it's easier to read.
Samsung Electronics also brought back some of the popular designs and features of its previous S6 model. They include a micro SD card slot, which enables users to expand storage without compromising the slim exterior. The phone can also stay submerged for 30 minutes in water, 1.5 meters deep, and still work just fine. While Samsung is improving its gadgets by mixing traditional and modern features, LG's new G5 smartphone brings in a whole new user paradigm. When the battery tray is removed, the slot can accept a variety of modules, including ones that provide enhanced camera controls, boost sound quality, and control drones.
The LG G5 is not the only device we'd like to introduce today. It comes with friends, extensive companion devices that enhance the user experience in dynamic ways. We'll introduce more friends, creating a new paradigm in smartphone ecosystems called LG Playground.
LG Electronics will start selling their new gadgets sometime next month. Samsung Electronics will begin global sales of the Galaxy S7 on March 11th. Kim Jian, Arirang News, Barcelona.
Now, the Syrian cities of Homs and Damascus have been hit by a wave of suicide bombings. The Islamic State militant group says it carried out the attacks. Kim Hyun has the details.
Multiple bomb attacks killed at least 100 people in Damascus and Syria's western city of Homs on Sunday. The attacks came on the same day as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry announced that Washington and Moscow had reached a principal agreement to cease hostilities between the various parties in Syria. He said Presidents Obama and Putin would speak in the coming days to complete the deal. The bloodshed may have rocked the prospects for a ceasefire. The London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says at least 57 people were killed and 100 others wounded in the twin-car bomb blast that hit Homs. Later, more than 60 people were killed in a triple suicide attack near the Shiite shrine of Sayyida Zainab, south of Damascus. Witnesses say suicide bombers blew themselves up after detonating a car bomb. The Islamic State militant group has claimed responsibility for all the attacks. The death toll is expected to rise since majority of the casualties are in critical condition. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says that since Sunday, at least 50 Islamic State fighters had been killed by government troops backed by Russian airstrikes in the northern city of Aleppo. It added that troops are continuing their advance against Islamic State positions from the eastern part of the city. Kim Mo-gyan, Arirang News.
The Japanese government is dispatching a vice minister-level administrative official to this year's Takeshima Day celebration for a fourth consecutive year. At a press briefing on Monday, Japan's Northern Territories Affairs Minister said Parliamentary Vice Minister of the Cabinet Office, Sakei Yasuyuki, would attend the ceremony. The Korean government last week called on Japan to stop its antagonistic and false territorial claims to Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo, which is known as Takeshima in Japan. Seoul's foreign ministry reiterated that Dokdo is Korean territory geographically and by international law. Authorities are warning that Korea's state-authorized verification certificates could be being hacked with the spread of fake certificate issuing programs. The certificates are used by financial and government institutions to authenticate a user's identity when making transactions online. A Seoul prosecutor revealed on Sunday that they found evidence of certificate issuing software having been forged. An investigation is underway to find out whether codes were stolen from the security firms that created the software or developed independently. There have been no confirmed cases of accounts being hacked, but the investigation is focused on finding out where and how the illegal software was developed. Now, for those of us looking to lose a kilo or two, switching what rice we eat to a different type could be a good place to start. According to a new study by researchers in Korea, black rice not only has some anti-cancer properties, it can also reduce the amount of fat in our body. Park Se-young has more.
More people are eating different types of rice for a healthy lifestyle. Black rice contains one of the highest levels of anthocyanin antioxidants, which act as anti-cancer agents. The rice is also good for anti-aging and prevention against various diseases. And according to research, black rice also fights against obesity. Substances found in the outermost layer of black rice, including anthocyanin, inhibit lipogenesis and fat absorption. The researchers fed 10 out of 20 mice with black rice extract for 3 months. Compared to the control group, the mice that were fed the extract saw a nearly 26% reduction in obesity index and a 27.5% reduction in abdominal fat. Their blood cholesterol was also reduced by 10.5%. Postmenopausal women who took black rice extract capsules for 12 weeks also saw a more than 5% reduction in abdominal fat. Korea's Rural Development Administration will transfer its extraction technology of black rice to companies which will produce medicines and various health products. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, fans of the Beatles in Korea, and there are many of them, will now be able to listen to their favourite songs on local music sites. According to Universal Music Korea, a total of 17 Beatles albums will be available for streaming and downloading online and via mobile starting next Monday, February 29th. Beatles albums have only been available on LP, tape or CD, and it was not until 2010 that Apple began offering Beatles studio albums for sale through iTunes. Now, the streaming and downloading service first kicked off in December last year via Apple Music and Spotify in the US, along with some other countries. Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching. We do hope your week is off to a good start, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Until then, goodbye.